What is up, friends? Sorry, I just got out of my suit. I did my job, which is super fun. Just was live into SportsCenter in Canada with my friends, analyzing the fights. Yes, I'm wearing a Big Trouble in Little China t-shirt. I don't know how long we'll be able to hang on account of, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. But that was a killer show. Spectacular, spectacular show. I loved it. There will be, I think, a lot of conversation probably about Kamaru Usman and dominance versus entertainment. I think we're going to talk about that a lot in the coming weeks. We'll see people discussing that. Petr Yan looked fucking unbelievable. I got a few things, I made a few notes during the night in case they popped up from my actual gainfully employed job on SportsCenter in Canada. God, I love that job. It's so fun. But also to sit here and chat with you guys while I unwind after my day of doing what I love. Also, I watched, all night long, they're like, drink Modelo. And you're like, all right, I'll get one. So just cutting loose, relaxed kind of observations. If you didn't see it, earlier tonight, I did a piece. You can go back and look tomorrow or whenever. Later, if you're a night owl, or in Australia and it's the morning. I did a piece earlier, Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal, looking at strategies and tactics and what they are and what they aren't. In it, there was a lot of, thinking out loud about if there are attributes when you're fighting somebody, you're Kamaru Usman fighting Jorge Masvidal, or you're anybody fighting another person, and there are attributes and skills that they have advantages in, how can we nullify those advantages? Of course, we can take the fight somewhere else. That's the old school way. The modern way is fatigue the person, right? And we talked about that a lot in my pre-show earlier. Again, you can go back and check it out. And then I was very pleased to see, but not surprised, to see Trevor Whitman discussing that as the principal root of the strategy to defeat Jorge Masvidal. A guy who is smaller, presumably was not training with the same intensity, and may have disadvantages in wrestling. Turned out, nobody should be surprised. Jorge can fucking wrestle, right? We saw that all night. But by making him wrestle against the bigger, stronger man who may have an advantage there, even, if they were both fully trained, you could fatigue Jorge. So it's very, very, very smart. If you're interested, I fought a few times, 9 times. I had 9 pro fights. And in my last one, it was a win, and I lost plenty. But it was a win, and I won it. The whole strategy was, this guy hits really fucking hard. Faraz was backstage with me. His brother had fought this guy. Ayman Zahabi had fought this guy. And after I fought him, Faraz was like, man, that guy's a heavy puncher. I was worried for you. But the strategy was, take it away. And all you got to do is, on YouTube, put in Robin Black versus... just put Slam, S-L-A-M-M. That is the show that I was on. Derek Charbonneau, great guy, really great guy, kind and humble, and it was great fighter. Ayman Zahabi had fought him, and Jorge was, Faraz was like, fuck, this guy hits hard. He's a heavy puncher. And so I just took away the space and put him on the fence and made him fucking tired until I could finish him. So I know, and this is one of the reasons why I talk about that personal experience and why I did that, believing that if I was going to do my job at a high level, I had to do that. I had to have, I thought 1 or 2 fights, so it turned out to be 9, to gain enough understanding to know how little I know. But at a low level, I experienced that, and I experienced how valuable it is. That as you feel, what happens, what Usman would have been experiencing, is you hear Jorge's breathing starts to change. You feel like these are not little things in the fight. This is everything. So when you're in the fight, we watch it on television and we're far away and we're seeing it, oh, this guy's doing this and this guy. In the fight, it's a lot of chaos and it's a lot of feeling. It's a lot of exchanges of information up close that only the fighters know about. And what you do as you feel a Jorge Masvidal or any fighter fatigue, you start to hear the breathing. You're up against the fence. He's now a little less strong as he's digging to try to defend these things. You feel the deeper sucking of breath. All of these things are pieces of information that are available within the fight. So Usman starts to feel that all working, and he goes back to this corner, and that's why a lifelong martial artist in a corner who's had, cornered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fights, like Trevor or any of these great coaches, they know that. They see it. There's anecdotal evidence that tells them how it's going. So you hear the coach say, we'll red line him, push him, then he will fatigue, he's got that burst, and then it's anaerobic. It's your anaerobic system. We know about aerobic system. You go for a long run, that's your aerobic system. Anaerobic system is sprint, recover, sprint, recover, sprint, recover. And that one is harder to raise your anaerobic capacity, your recovery. That's much harder to raise in a short period of time. That's why in the last 3 weeks of fighting, you really train your anaerobic capacity, your recovery, all of these things, so that on fight night you can do that. Great coach, great fighter. They're like, the weaknesses that he will have, we can exploit them in this way. And the strengths that he will have, striking with us in the open field, we will take those away by fatiguing him. It's fucking brilliant. A lot of people are going to be like, that's boring, I hate it. But the more you learn about it, the more you see how brilliant it is. So that instead of sitting there waiting for a big kick or punch, you can sit there and go, oh my God, I'm seeing him put these pieces into account, okay? We'll come back to a little bit of that. Let's talk about a few other things. I'm just getting into the vibe now. It's nice to be able to kick back with a bunch of friends and talk about fighting after a long day of talking about fighting. I'm such a lucky human being. I realize this. What else do we look at? Okay, so first of all, Paige Van Zandt and Austin, her husband, they're friends of mine, and so I wish them all the best, and I hope that whatever is ahead for Paige is great. I was disappointed to see her lose. That girl was brilliant, and the opponent, all credit to her. Rose looked good. Couple little things during and this is not a criticism of Michael Bisping. I admire him, I love him. He invited me to his after party after he fought George, even though I did a documentary on George and was traveling with George. I love Mike. He's so smart, and I've always been a fan of his, so this is not a criticism of him. Or anybody in specific. But when we do the job of television broadcasting, often we will see something, oh, nice head movement. And that's, again, I don't know what Mike said. Sometimes he pulled back on it. Sometimes these are knee-jerk reactions. These are not judgments on somebody's actual, observations. But we say that a lot. And so let's take the commentator tonight or any other night out of it. We all do it. We'll see something, and we've almost been trained to react a particular way. We'll see somebody doing this, and we'll be like, nice head movement. Because Joe, my guy, I usually have my Joe Rogan mug here, but I don't. Joe, when he was teaching people to understand fighting, part of the way he did it in the early days was a leg kick would happen, or like a defense would happen, or a counter would happen, and Joe would just point that thing out during the thing. Oh, look, it's a beautiful jab, and he set up the 2-3. Joe used that as a tool to teach people. But now we all kind of imitate Joe, because that's what we do with really special personalities. So we all say, oh, beautiful head movement. Listen, and this is not, I don't criticize fighters. It's just not what I do. Anyone who's ever fought will not criticize a fighter, because whatever happens is usually a credit to the winner, the credit to the person who won the exchange, more than it is to a mistake. And even in truth, a mistake is something that happened in the preparation. What you do in that moment where you get hit, it's a reflection on your preparation. In the fight unfolds how it will unfold based on your preparation. And that's the truth. When you prepare for a long time for something where in those moments, somebody said Max got robbed. I'm sorry, I can't see your name, it's very small there, but I'll talk about Max for sure before we wrap this up. So yeah, generally there's not that as many errors or something we need to judge or criticize, because it's really about the dynamic of decision-making in the moment, which happens based on all of the preparation and learning that you've done before that. In the fight, you just allow it to happen. And if you're not allowing it to happen, loose and relaxed and seeing everything, then that's a flaw of your preparation to get into the mental state to be able to perform that way, right? So generally, I don't want to criticize, and I don't want to do that here. But as we're seeing the preparation expressed in the moment with Andrade, we saw a general stance like this. Now, this is not, again, not a criticism. This is just an observation. This is how she was prepared. But as you watch this, you see a rhythm. It's not difficult to time this rhythm. It becomes very, very predictable. It's like a clock. It's like a tick-tock, or a rhythm, or a drum beat. It becomes very easy to anticipate. So we'll say, oh my God, great head movement. And Stephen Thompson and I were communicating about it on Twitter tonight. I pointed that out, and Stephen quite kindly said he agreed, and he was observing the exact same thing. You know, we have a tendency to just see, oh, I see a thing I recognize. Checking leg kicks. Nice check, or nice head movement. But we've been trained to look that way, when in fact there is good choices in how you move. And first of all, I'm going to digress here for a second, but that's what I do. If you consume my stuff, you know that's what I do. Head movement is in fact torso and full body movement. We are moving the target, but we are doing it through the movement of our entire body. There's no such thing as head movement if you don't move your neck, torso, whole body. So it is a whole body movement that is designed to be able to take your target off of the position that it is as a weapon is moving towards it. That thing doesn't happen by creating a rhythm and just keeping it moving in a perfect way. And you saw Jose do it, especially in the first few rounds. Something's happening, and my brain, through training, identifies the threat and by itself slips to the appropriate way, the way I've trained my nervous system to do. Of course, I can't think consciously, I see a jab, I think I'll slip. I have to have trained my brain to identify that thing and do it without conscious thought. I talk about this a lot, and I'm going to talk about it more and more and more over the next weeks and months and years. Because to me, this is the gold. This is the gold of what's really happening. When you're the outlier weirdos like me and a few other people, and you're not part of the large broadcasts, you get to go and explore these things. I brought a conversation about a book called The Rise of Superman to Joe Rogan on his podcast talking about martial arts like 6 years ago. Tonight, finally, the idea rose and the conversation about the flow state. Because television is not trying to pioneer ideas. I don't want to fuck around with things that can be weird or incorrect or be, get the audience to not care or overreact or hate something. They allow the weirdos out there to do that. So the front end of what I'm looking at and what I'm interested in and what I'm hoping through 2-3 years from now will become part of normal conversations when myself and others commentate things, is how the brain is actually working. We talk, oh, he saw this and he reacted this way and he's countering with this. Yes, but see, think, react, all of those things are not in the way that we see, think, and react on a day-to-day basis. We're in an altered physio. That was weird. I apologize. Wow, there's people hanging in here. Thanks for hanging in. It just said stream interrupted, and then it all made a bunch of circles. But there are like people that hung out and waited. That's very kind of you guys. Yeah, no idea. My phone just reset, and it's a nice phone. It's an iPhone 11. Freaked me out, but very, very cool. And we're back, it says. Appreciate you guys hanging in here. Wow, that is very kind. Because if I'm watching something and it falls out, I'd be like, I don't know what the fuck's up. But again, very much appreciate you. Where were we? We were talking about sort of the real way that the brain and the nervous system interprets these moments. But we'll move on. So I was talking about head movement and talking about how Jose Aldo, when he's moving his head, it's not, let's just get the head moving. And again, this is not a judgment. Because we're all, especially in MMA, and you also notice, anyone notice this? The term MMA is barely used now in broadcasts of any kind. It's all martial arts, martial arts, martial arts. And I am stoked about that. MMA, the sport, feels uncool somehow. It feels retro now. Martial arts is the art form. And for me, I'll get back to Rose and Jose in a second, but for me, there is sport and there is art, and I do my job in the world of the art of martial arts. A lot of what we consume and how we talk about it is done in the world of sports. And sports has a different language. Sports has a different way of communicating. Sports looks at things differently. But I love seeing that. So let's move on. Anyways, Rose looked phenomenal. She was flowing beautifully. She was moving in and out. And that's where I was talking about, you know, the head movement. If you look at how many strikes she landed, I do not want to stand here with my head in one spot, but just moving it in a rhythmic, predictable pattern is not a lot better. You're going to hit me a lot. Rose hit Andrade a lot. She was able to touch her constantly because that's not going to be a high enough level to be able to deal with it over time, like Jose Aldo. And again, this is not it's not like this person's bad at this and this person's good at this. Everything in life is skill development. How hard have we worked to improve our ability to do this thing? How many hours have we done? 100 hours, 1,000 hours, 10,000 hours? Who have we learned from? Have we tried and failed things? And then in revisiting them, we adjust and improve in our skills? Have we done any of that? And so we're all at different stages. And when you look at modern mixed martial arts, the sport, Andrade, you know, it's an idea called opportunity cost. So let's say you can train hard for 20 hours a week. Not everybody agrees with that figure, but let's just say that's so. 20 hours a week, 4 weeks is 80 hours, 10 months on is 800 hours. Where are you going to put those 800 hours this year? Because if you put 600 of them into a particular thing, kickboxing, you're going to get better than the person who put 300 into weightlifting and 300 into jiu-jitsu. You'll get better at this. So the allotment of our learning ability, the opportunity cost of where we put our effort, we can only put it in certain places. And yes, we want to be well-rounded, but if somebody becomes, you know, puts all their effort into head kicks, they're going to be fucking good at head kicks, but they will not have been as good at reacting to cage fighting. You know, as you're fighting on the cage with, you know, grappling and on the vertical surface doing basically vertical jiu-jitsu or wrestling and grappling on a cage. You just won't, right? So it doesn't mean somebody sucks at head movement, because that's not really a thing. It's just it's an aspect of boxing or kickboxing or karate or anything. Taking your target and moving it out of the line of the weapon, moving it off of the trajectory of the weapon. So Rose fought beautifully. She was able to land a lot. But then Andrade pushed through, adapted, and willed herself into smashing Rose up in the third round. And of course, Rose was tough enough. Beautiful. Petr Yan, I'm going to touch on these quickly because it's 3:30 in the morning and I've been doing what I love all day. And eventually you get tired even when you do what you love. Petr Yan, I saw him switch to southpaw, I believe in the second. So look at this. And at the end of the first, and they didn't pick up on it in the broadcast, it happened very quickly, he landed a punch, and on the viewer, if you're facing the fighter, it's his left side. That's why you throw a left hook. But for the fighter, it's his right side. And that doesn't sound like a big thing, but it is a big thing. We say the liver is on the right side. Well, the liver is on the right side of the human, but it's on the left side of the attacker. Right? And those details matter. But so he threw a punch standing in open guard, and it just landed off on the floating rib there, and you see it indent, and you see Jose cover up. That's beautiful stuff. And beautiful to see Jose tough it out. He'd been there God, he was so good tonight, and he was so tough. And it's hard to watch. He's only 33, but you see how many fights he's had him for so long. And, you know, in the early days, he was fighting so much. It's tough to see, but then to see that kind of heart is impressive. Then he fucks up Jan's left leg early in round 2. Yan now had to win the world title from southpaw, he had no plan to fight in southpaw. You talk about, and people will look back and say, oh, he did phenomenal, he attacked the body, he was landing these shots, he did all these things, and that's all great, and that's all true. But everything Petr Yan did was not intended to be done. He didn't go into that fight saying, I'm going to fight four rounds, right hand forward. That, you saw round one. When he throws that thing and commits to that right hand, it lands every time and it rocks humans every time. It's such a deadly weapon. And all of a sudden, he's had to force to fight southpaw. That takes away his number one weapon. And now he's throwing the straight left and still found the way to win that fight. That's fucking impressive. Max Holloway. Okay, I got a couple interesting things from Max Holloway. I will share this on my Instagram tomorrow. I'll share it on YouTube too. A 15-minute thing. If you know who Raymond Daniels is, Raymond Daniels is a genius. He's actually a sport karate world champion. Became a kickboxing world champion, full contact karate world champion, kickboxing world champion, a genius in glory kickboxing, and then he fights in Bellator, and he has probably the greatest single knockout you've ever seen. Spin 720s, which is 2 360s, and then Raymond Daniels is the guy who KO'd Tony Ferguson in training 2 weeks before Tony fought. I actually didn't hear that. But I will ask Ray about that. Somehow I miss that. I miss a lot of the news, and so into like the martial arts aspects of it, and the training and the learning and the brain and the psychology and the physiology and all of these things that I miss a lot of the news. But so Ray does 2 full spins and a punch to knock a guy out. Ray's a genius. And I was doing a podcast with Ray, analyzing Ray's work with Ray and my friend Mallory Woods, who's another elite karateka. And so I'll put that up tomorrow. And we're watching Ray's, and during it, Max Holloway's brought up. And Ray says the difference for Max Holloway in this fight would be a lot. See how this is what you're seeing of me. Imagine as you're dealing with me, punches are coming up from under your peripheral vision, right? They're hitting you from, if we're here, you see them coming. And never mind, Max is taller, and that's what Ray pointed out. You actually see them coming down on you. And Ray quite rightly pointed out. And I will share it tomorrow, so on my Instagram and my Twitter. And I think I'll share a big piece here tomorrow. I don't know if that's in it, but the short piece with Ray talking about the adjustments that Max Holloway could and should make. I'll share it on Twitter and Instagram tomorrow. So he's talking about punches coming up from low, from waist level. Again, people are always like, this is why you keep your hands up. Well, the greats don't follow these rules. They don't keep their front foot on the outside against southpaw. They don't always keep their hands up. These are myths. These are things that you learn at the low levels and then you break at the upper middle levels. So punching from down here, and Max did that. At first 3 rounds, uppercuts, up jabs, knees up the middle, even kicks up the middle. And why was Ray? Why did Ray see that? Because Ray's a fucking genius, right? Ray's a cool dude and a good friend. He's become a really good friend. So Ray is mentioning that, and then we're watching it, and on Twitter, me and Mallory are looking at it, and we're like, fuck. Obviously, Ray Daniels knows what's up, right? And he was correct. Max is winning those first few rounds, coming up from underneath. Adaptability. So why would that work? Well, one, Max is the taller fighter against the shorter fighter who's a little curved over and very aggressive and very stocky and commits with power. This comes up. So you're throwing the stocky fighter here and we're landing upwards. And we think of flying knees, we think of knees up the middle, but there's a lot of weapons we use there. One, that is a foundational approach to a guy like Volkanovski. Two, Max didn't do a lot of that in the first fight. What does that mean? It means we get to take fundamental approaches that often, not always, but often can be effective against people of this body type when expressed by people of this body type, if I'm Max, and it'll be a surprise because they're all the things Max didn't do in the first fight. So there's a lot of reasons to do that. So Ray is dead correct. Max is doing that in 3 rounds. I thought Max won 3 rounds. I am not a judge. You're not a judge. And we do this all the time because we care, right? We're passionate about this. We'll be like, that's bullshit, Max won. Max didn't win. The way you win is not to convince us you won. It's to convince 2 or 3 of the individuals sitting at the cage. I didn't make those rules. Don't be mad at me. You didn't make them either, but they're true. And people are like, Gustafsson won the first fight with John Jones. I don't know. I can pull up my computer and look it up, and he didn't. It's fucking shocking. When I look it up, no, it seems John Jones won it. Because no, he did win. No, he didn't. The only thing that the history will recognize is that those two or three of those people made that decision. And, the cliche is never leave it to the judges. And cliches lose effectiveness the more we use them. They become, commodified. Like things lose their meaning when you say it that much. Dishing out some ground and pound. Once upon a time, that sounded shocking, heavy, crazy. Now it's just the shit you say when that happens, right? Same thing, never leave it in the hands of the judges. What does that actually mean? If you do not finish someone, 3 human beings who you do not know, you don't know what they know, you don't know what they saw, you don't know how they think, you don't know anything about them. It's those 3 human beings will decide how history views this. That's just the facts. I don't like it either, but it's always gonna be the facts. So we just accept it. If you're asking me, and many of you, Michael Bisping and many others, who won 3 of those rounds, I thought Max won 3 of those rounds. But regardless, Volkanovski, Max adapted. That's why he did so well in those 3 rounds. Volkanovski adapted to those adaptations. That's real. That's legit. And he fucking did that. In the fire, getting punched in the face. And this is the simple analogy. Anyone who has kids, or anyone who's been a kid, which is everyone, if you're a kid and you touch something hot, it's an element or something really hot, and it hurts, what do? You're like, fuck, I don't want to do that anymore. That's fighting. Over and over, when you come forward, Max Holloway fucks you up. Your brain is intentionally trying to make you stop going forward now. Because your brain's like, wait a second, that's a hot element. I'm burning myself. I'm hurting myself. I gotta stop. And you have to override that. Again, this comes up a lot in conversation about the difference between fighting or coaching or cornering 100 people, what you learn. You learn these things. It isn't about, he's got to get the jab going, or, if he can distance management. Like, that's just shit we say on TV. The reality is your brain is trying to get you to stop doing that thing that's hurting it. And Volkanovski overrode that. He overrode that after 12 minutes or 14 minutes of getting fucked up. When he moved forward, he still kept going forward. He still kept doing it. And that is route number 1. And then route number 2, when he did it, he adapted and changed himself and made the small, improvements. And sometimes they're just detail. Like, how quickly did I move in? What's the rhythm of moving in? The difference between getting punched and not getting punched is literally a timing issue of a few hundred milliseconds. Or it's nothing, right? But it's little adaptations that the brain has to make in how it interprets what's happening. So he did all that. Usman, Jorge, Volkanovski, Yan, yeah. I think I should wrap. I'm getting tired. I've had a bad habit of, because I do what I love all day, just keeping doing it. And the result of working a lot is you learn a lot. And the result of learning a lot is you get better at your stuff. And then you find other things to learn, and you build knowledge on knowledge, and then you go into the gym and you try it and you run it past your coach, and all of a sudden this feedback loop is created where you're continuing to learn. This is not a game. I have many jobs in television and I love them. I'm trying to get to a point where I can improve my job in television by learning many things outside of the accepted conversations in television. It's not easy to do. It requires a hard push, and it creates a lot of tension. Sometimes I'm stressed out, or I'm angry, or I don't understand why I can't get these ideas across, or, there's all these things that happen. But it's worth it because I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with this. I'm obsessed with peeling another layer and another layer and another layer, and ultimately finding where the flaws are in our understanding of fighting, where the gold is, and then finding ways to explain complex ideas and simplify them so that you can explain them to a 12-year-old. Let's watch his next pay-per-view numbers. I don't know about pay-per-view numbers. Pay-per-views are about how other people observe a thing, how many of them do, and how marketing works. And that's outside. It's all, marketing or real estate or finance or any of these things. There's certain connections to how any organism changes or grows or any systems work. You study any system long enough, you study how kung fu or karate or mixed martial arts or more modern interpretations work, how Letway evolves, any of these things, and you learn certain fundamental truths that will apply to how information is shared. But I don't have a lot of interest in popularity or numbers or pay-per-view. I don't own the UFC or like WWE or any of these companies. I don't cheer for, corporations to make more or less money. It's just, they are what they are. They're part of the thing. Let's see if I can take any questions. I'm so sorry. My vision just starts to decay, watching screens and talking all day, but let's see what we can see. If you understood that the fight wasn't boring at all. Yeah, okay, that's cool. So, boring. What is boring, right? And that's one of those oh, fuck, it's a Robin Blackism. What is entertaining? What is boring? You can't go out into the forest and find me a cup of boring. Am I drinking beer? Yes, I'm having a single Modelo after I wrapped my television job, which ended about 2 a.m. Eastern time. So I'm having a little wind down. I hope somebody asked. I hope nobody's offended, but this is my YouTube channel, so I guess I'm allowed. But you can't go out into the forest and find me a bucket full of boring, or you can't go out into just the reality of anywhere and just find me a cup of entertainment. Right? These things are in the eye of the beholder. There is no such thing at its root as an exciting fight or a boring chess match. There is only the way we perceive it, right? It doesn't exist without us. What we define as boring or exciting is entirely through our filter. We see it, we relate to it, we interpret it. Our life experience and our knowledge and what we've grown to love and dislike, creates that opinion, our opinion of something is exciting or boring. Now, if we take 100,000 of us and 80,000 say something is boring, they agree on that. And that means that something in their experience or something in what they know or see or like or dislike, it relates there. My job is not to try to say, this is exciting. My job is to, if I believe that, look at it, see what is special within that, and then attempt to show that to others. And if I do, and they go, fuck you, Robin Black, that's still really boring, then that's cool. I'm not trying to make anybody see anything different. But if I look at sort of the game of, Robin, I was bored. Sorry, doesn't take an explanation to know this was not special. Well, I think you missed my point. You were bored. That's real. That's real. That's genuine. That's honest. And that is your interpretation. That is what you saw and what you experienced based on whatever you've learned, enjoyed, liked, disliked, tried, seen, smelled, tasted. It's a reflection on you. And that's not a judgment on you. I'm not mad at you. That's real. You get to feel that way. You're a person. You're an individual. You see a thing. It does not entertain you. That is a result of your life experience. Good, bad, smart, different, whatever, right? And it's okay. You get to have that. That's real. And that's real to you and to many other people. It's not real to me. And my job, and it'd be ridiculous of me to try to convince you otherwise. No, it was really exciting. That's only in my senses and brain and process. It's not yours. Yours is, I saw that, I took it in, I was not entertained. That's real. You get to have that forever. We all get to have that. To convince me of that, now you cannot convince me of that because I have different eyes, different mind, different experience, different likes and dislikes, different interests and things that don't interest me. And so that's all individual. But yes, if 80% of us agree, that's boring. And 80% of people I think do. That doesn't matter to me or any but you. It shouldn't necessarily matter to you. You might feel better because other people feel similar, but it doesn't really matter. But it can matter to Kamaru Usman because Kamaru Usman, and so I think this is actually an interesting piece of conversation. The ultimate goal, what somebody will say, well, my ultimate goal is to win the UFC title. That's cool. That's a noble goal. Now, UFC champion, once upon a time, there was only like 30 of those. Once there was only 5. Once there was a single one. Now there's been hundreds. The value of that has changed. But if it's valuable to you, I want a Canadian bantamweight title. It was in a small show. There were many, many titles all over the world. I know this is not big, but it's really important to me. And it's representative of my entire 9 professional fights, all my amateur fights, and all my competitions in jiu-jitsu and taekwondo and whatever. So it's really important to me, but it's not important to other people. But if we're talking about what the main available success is, depending on what's important to you, you can win a title, you can get money, you can get influence, power, popularity. What is popularity? Influence, power, potential to earn money. But those things are real. You don't have to care about them, but you can care about them, and they are part of the potential win. So when you win a title, and when you win a championship, you've won something. If you say that's all I care about, then good for you. But of everything that was potential to be won, a title is only a part of it. Again, money, popularity, influence, those things are not super important to me, personally. Money is useful, but if I made, say, $200,000 a year, I don't think there'd be much difference if I made $311,000, because if I had to do things that took away my freedom and my enjoyment and my capacity to make art and my ability to learn and my curiosity, that wouldn't be important to me. But if the difference between $29,000 and $60,000 will be important to me because I can help my family. So we're all different. We're all motivated by different things, and that's all okay. But if you're talking about all of the potential available to be won, winning is good, but winning and making people excited and making people becoming popular gives more available successes. Again, it only matters if it matters to you and to the individual. Again, if I was the champion of the world, if I got the chance to become a great martial artist, being super popular wouldn't be as important as being honest and authentic. Some people get to have it all. Joe Rogan's been honest and authentic and done things his own way, and he's popular, and he's rich, and he's successful. Sometimes the long road to being able to do that is being honest to who you are. And Khabib Nurmagomedov is a perfect example. Khabib Nurmagomedov, some might say, he fights not all that different to Usman. He's got an intensity about him, like George St. Pierre did, who also fought not that unlike Usman. But by being himself, George was himself, and he became popular even though he fought similar. Khabib is himself. Khabib's honest. Khabib is Khabib. And he has fucking, 10 million followers on social media. That's real popularity. That's how you measure popularity today. Chael Sonnen never was the champion, but became very popular by being. It's all what's important to you. We're all different. We all have different goals. We all should have different goals. What's important is what is your goal and really figuring it out. And it will change over time, I've started to I can only talk about myself personally. We're all different. Everybody else could tell me their personal feelings. But one thing I will tell you is it will change over time. if you are lucky enough to keep doing the thing that you love to do. One day you dreamed of being a champion, another day you dreamed of being popular, then that fighter became popular and realized it wasn't important, and so on and so forth. For me now, the freedom to continue doing what I love to do every day and trying to get better at it and learn more things, that's the priority. If somebody gave me 20% or 30% more money to do it their way and limit my ability to keep learning, I would be less happy. I would be less happy. And ultimately, I think I would be less successful. If I'm lucky enough to live 30 more years, I'll keep learning, and ultimately doing it your way probably pays off in the end, right? So Usman can do that. I think and he's managed by Ali. Ali's brilliant. He is. People have all kinds of opinions about Ali, but if you look just from his accomplishments and what he does with his fighters, it's fucking impressive and very impressive. And so he's got good leadership and good friendship leadership, right? Trust. But if I was Ali and if I was Usman and I was their people, I'd be like, fuck it, man. Do your thing. Do it consistently. Be great. Be yourself. Do it your way and stand up for it. You know, don't cater to any of this stuff. Catering, like, you know, saying the right things like you're on American Idol is not the route to being able to move people. You move people by being truthful and honest and real. That's why we all gave a shit about Jorge for the last 18 months, and we will in the next, as long as he keeps to that. It's because he's real. He's honest, you know? I better wrap it up. It's really cool people to be hanging out with me this late. You're probably all drunk or high or something. But you're people who love fighting like I do. And that is really, really cool. If you think about it, somebody says, Robin is a practitioner of Taekwondo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was featured on Much Music. Yes, I was. I'm a practitioner of most martial arts. I've trained that way and sumo and jiu-jitsu and boxing and wrestling and 9 pro MMA fights. I competed in Brazilian jiu-jitsu at NAGA Worlds and the Pan Am Games, and I got to compete in Taekwondo as a kid, and I've commentated Taekwondo, and I commentated 21 different martial arts at the World Combat Games in Russia. I've commentated Wushu and Kung Fu and Taekwondo and Sambo and Sumo, and I'm so lucky, man. I'm so lucky. So thankful. I'm going to sleep well tonight. It's been a great day. I think that's it. If you get a chance, if you're interested, go back and the second last video to this one, Masvidal versus Usman strategy and tactics. I think I had a few really good thoughts today. I think might interest some people. I will post that video with Raymond Daniels, myself, and my buddy Mallory chatting about striking and stuff. I'll post that tomorrow. Good night, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with me. It's a real privilege. I really appreciate it. I truly do, and I never will take it for granted. Much love. Enjoy the hostilities.